We're the 6th or 7th wealthiest country in the world. It's a lie to say that we can't afford to provide a decent standard of living for all. We can. This government is making a choice to push hundreds of thousands of people into poverty. Oh my God. There's quite a few people been in touch that wanted to speak today about the effects of the bedroom tax on them, but they didn't want to stand up and speak in public because either they're a bit nervous or they're worried about repercussions. So I've got some testimonies that people have emailed me that we'll be reading out through the course of the day. But I'm going to pass over to another speaker. Okay, Mark Harrison from the Norfolk Coalition of Disabled People will say a few words. Where's Mark gone?
Rights that disabled people have fought for over the last half-century. This week Cameron lied in Parliament about the bedroom tax. He said that it's not going to affect disabled children. That's complete nonsense. It's a lie. Disabled children aren't exempt from the bedroom tax. Parents of disabled children in Wiltshire took Wiltshire County Council and the Department of Work and Pensions to court this week. They won in the High Court and the government was going to appeal against it, but they decided not to at the last minute. However, it doesn't mean that they've won. What it means is that all people can do is apply for a grant to tide them over while decisions are being made. This affects hundreds of thousands of disabled people up and down the country. This week also, disabled people have been in the High Court. Over 50 disabled people demonstrated on Wednesday outside the High Court because of the closure of the Independent Living Fund. This is a fund that 18,000 disabled people rely on to live in their own homes, to live independently. The government is scrapping this. The government is also just about to scrap disability living allowance. This is what disabled people rely on to be able to live an independent life. They're replacing it with a thing called personal independence payment. What it means is that over 25% of people that currently are eligible for DLA will no longer get it. We look at the work capability assessments. We see it at its sharpest. This government have employed Atos, a private French company, to do their bidding. The test that they are putting disabled people through is vicious. It means that disabled people who have been on incapacity benefit for 20, 30 years are going into these tests. To pass the test you have to get 15 points. The majority of people are getting no points. That means they're thrown onto the job market in a triple or quadruple dip recession, where they've got no chance of getting a job. If you combine that with the council tax being imposed on people on benefits, you see an enormous attack on disability rights. And the playing field isn't level. Disabled people are already 20% poorer than their peers in the population because of the extra cost of disability. So rather than levelling the playing field, this government is driving hundreds of thousands of disabled people into poverty. Disabled people, families with disabled people in their families, and disabled children. This government has no democratic mandate to do this. None of these attacks were in the Conservative or the Lib Dem manifestos. They weren't even in the coalition agreement. This is driving disabled people into desperate measures. There's already many cases of disabled people who have died having been assessed as fit for work, and they die before they even get their benefits or even get to their job centre appointments. Disabled people have also committed suicide as a result of the pressure that they're being put under. We've called on the government to do a cumulative equality impact assessment, and they've refused to do this. In fact, the government have scrapped equality impact assessments because it's the last thing they want to do to prove that their policies are pushing people into poverty and misery. However, it's not just the condemns that we're worried about. Disabled people are also worried about the opposition. We're also worried about the Labour Party, because we don't trust the Labour Party in government, because we saw that the last Labour government brought in many of these policies. It was the last Labour government that decided to scrap the Independent Living Fund. It was the last Labour government that scrapped incapacity benefit and gave the contracts to privatised companies like Atos, Capita and G4S. And the jury's out. This week the government is appealing against the decision that the unemployed people who took Poundland and the slave labour cases to court. The government is appealing against that and is going to repeal it to make sure that the thousands of disabled people and unemployed people who have refused to go on the slave labour unpaid schemes don't get compensation that they're due because their benefits were suspended. It's in the Guardian today that the Labour opposition is going to support the government to prevent unemployed people from getting the compensation that they're entitled. So what we need is a different sort of leadership. We need the trade unions to come out in support of disabled people who are leading this fight against this government. We need a leadership in the Labour Party that's more like Chavez in Venezuela, who actually championed the poor, who brought in policies that challenge free market capitalism, challenge neoliberalism. We need policies that are actually going to benefit disabled people and the poor. So the jury's out. We think this is a fantastic protest. Disabled people against the cuts Norfolk are demonstrating monthly outside Atos. We had a demonstration yesterday. We're back there, I think, on the 15th of April. We ask you all to come along and support us and join this fight, and let's step it up. Let's bring this government down.